Okay, we're about to start. Good afternoon. And our pawb. My name is Councillor Hannah Fleet and I'm Chair of the Education and Skills Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can I welcome everybody to the meeting? This is a multi-location meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and for those attending remotely to choose your language of choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those attending remotely, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and remote attendees. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will not be able to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, please put a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware, and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other, and you always are. That applies to members, officers, and anyone in the public gallery. When I open the debate to members, I will ask committee members to speak and put their questions first, followed by non-committee members. Whilst I do not wish to stifle debate, can I remind members that any questions should be focused on the subject matter and avoid repetition. If I feel the length of individual speeches are negatively impacting on the overall time for discussion and becoming unmanageable, I will defer to the committee's rules of procedure. These limit the length of speeches to 5 minutes. Can I remind members that there is an exempt item on the agenda today and that you should be the only person able to hear any confidential and exempt items that are being discussed, those of you that are attending remotely, please. So before I move on to the agenda, I just have one thing that I would like to say. I wish to express our thanks to Ysgol to Education and to the ERF for their efforts in coordinating provision for our children and our staff during the closure of the school. At the start of term, with everyone raring to go and enjoy all that our schools have to offer, this must have been quite a blow that they were going to have to wait or work from home. The school and our own education and ERF officers rose to the challenge, doing their absolute best to provide for our youngsters. This was a momentous task, particularly for the teachers and the families involved, so much praise goes to them, please. Also, could we recognise the speedy work carried out by Education and the ERF, assessing all our education sites with the problems with RAC within a 2-week window, on top of their usual commitments and with Eston inspection this term. So thank you very much. I'm sure you will all join in thanking them, everybody that was involved. Thank you. So moving on, could we have apologies for absence, please?
Just one apology from the Youth Council representative.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. I'm reminding you that you must declare the nature of your declared personal interest, please. Councillor Kay.
Hi, I'm Local Authority Governor for Ysgol. However, I will stay for the debate as it's local authority elected.
Thank you. Online, Councillor Anne.
Yeah, just to declare that I'm Chair of Governors at Ysgol Capilillo, but again, I think it's not a prejudicial interest, so I will stay. Thank you.
Okay, we might have quite a few of us that are chairs. Myself, I'm chair at Llanflewn. I'm a governor at Llanflewn. Do we have anyone else that, as a governor of one of the schools mentioned later, needs to declare that? Councillor
Chair. Yeah, I'm Vice Chair. Oh no, I'm not Chair. I'm Governor now in Ysgol Llanflewn.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
I don't think it's prejudicial, but I'm LEA Governor at St El's Primary School in Abergele.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen.
Yeah, I'm not part of this committee, so I don't really need to declare, but I am governor for Ysgol.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm not a member of the committee, so it's even less important, I think.
It's always important. So it's interesting, you know, that even that you're here, it's still good that we know that we are aware and we're as transparent as possible. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, also on the governors at Scotland and Rose.
Thank you. And Councillor Chris.
Governor Llandrillo and Rose, don't believe it's prejudicial.
Thank you. I've got a few of you now. I'm going to cancel that. You're flicking around. Anthony.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to let you aware, I'm a governor at a school Cregidon, and also I'm vice chair at Bedavon School, if that makes any difference.
Thank you. Councillor Evo.
Yeah, I'm a governor in Betws and Rose School and Ysgol Talhern. I don't believe it's prejudicial.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a governor at Ysgol Glanwyddan and Ysgol John Bright, and it's not prejudicial. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Frank.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm a governor at Ysgol of Cregidon. It's not prejudicial.
Thank you. Councillor Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of this committee, but I'm a governor at Ysgol de Gamwy.
Thank you. Councillor Simon.
Sorry, technical issues. I missed the question. Sorry.
It's just any declarations of interest, because there's quite a few schools up for discussion.
I think nearly
today.
most of us are governors. I'm a governor at St Joseph's Primary and Pennebryn Primary.
Thank you. And Councillor Tristan.
Pnawn da. Dwi hefyd yn Ysgol Broalet, Llansannan yn Lywodraethwr. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. And Councillor Dave. Dave Jones.
Yeah, I'm a governor at Ysgol Awel y Mynydd.
Thank you. And Councillor Gwennell.
Pnawn da, dwi'n lywodraethwr ar Ysgol Dyffryn Conwy.
Diolch yn fawr. Okay, that was a busy one.
Yeah, as long as you're all LEA governors, then there won't be a prejudicial interest. So,
thank you very much, Dawn. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to urgent matters, and I'm not aware of any. So item 4 is the minutes. To approve and sign as a correct record minutes of the previous meeting on the 18th of July 2023. Could I have someone who's happy to propose those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Gwennell. Thank you. And do we have someone to set? Councillor Tristan, I think it is. Yeah. Sorry, there's a lot of you and you're very small. It's hard to see from here. So thank you. We got a seconder. So could I have a vote, please, to approve those minutes? Thank you. I think that's everybody that's a member. Thank you. So questions to Cabinet members. Item 5, I'm not aware of any. So we'll move on to item 6. To review the forward work programme, and I'm going to hand over to Dawn Hughes of the Scrutiny and Committee Services Officer. And can I remind members that you're only to raise topics that relate to the remit of this committee, please. If you have any items that you wish to see on the forward work programme, can I ask that you email the Scrutiny and Committee Services Officer with a relevant scrutiny topic form? Thank you.
thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members. So the only changes I've got for you are, as you're aware, there's an item on the agenda coming up. We have an Estin inspection in November, and that clashes with our next meeting, which is due on the 7th of November. So officers have asked that we reschedule that meeting. So we are looking at some dates, and it's likely to be the 19th of December, we think, because we're trying to keep it on a Tuesday. So you all are aware, but I will confirm to you once I've had some confirmation from officers, because it does mean cabinet decisions won't take place till January. So, but I will keep you informed. And that's the only update I have, Chair.
Okay, do I have anyone that wishes to propose that we're happy with the alterations to the forward work programme? I've got Councillor Kay in the room. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tristan? No, Ivor, sorry, it was Councillor Ivor. And can I have a vote, please, on that? Thank you very much. It's carried. So item 7 is the Eston inspection in November 2023 and an update to members. Dr. Lily Brown is going to provide that update for us. Dr. Lily is online, which we're all quite grateful for, given that she's not so well at the moment. Thank you. I'll pass over to you.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair. And apologies, I can't be with you in person today, but I didn't want to spread any of the lurgy at the moment that we've got in this household. So just trying to keep everybody safe and avoid mixing. I just wanted to take this opportunity really to update the Education and Skills Committee on what the Eston inspection will look like in the week commencing the 6th of November, and just to really give you an overview of the lines of inquiry, an indication of the framework, and some of the requests we will be making of members over the next few weeks. So, you know, as governors in schools, Eston preparation is a busy time. It's all hands on deck, and I just want to give you some reassurances really that our planning is on track, and the information that we have begun to collate. So Dawn, if you can just go to the second slide, please.
We're just trying to remove people's faces from your
Okay.
slides, so we can all see.
That's lovely, Dawn, thank you. So as many of you may be aware, this is the framework in its entirety. So as with a school inspection, there are 3 inspection areas that the team will be looking into, and have been really for some time. So over recent years, our relationship with the link inspector from the Eston team has been a really valuable and a good professional relationship. And we've started over the years to co-construct some of the lines of inquiry really that they would like more information on in terms of what we offer as a local authority, and specific areas requiring focus or improvement that we would value their own input into as well. So the framework in its entirety focuses on outcomes in area 1, and this looks at progress of specific groups of learners, the element of well-being and attitude to learning, and standards in its wider sense. Key area 2, in terms of education services, this is where the local questions fall into place. So we've got questions around support for school improvement, which of course is our relationship with the consortia and the commission service that is GWE, support for vulnerable learners and other educational support services. And I will give you a little bit more detail as to the specifics of those local areas on the next slide. And then the third area is leadership and management. And although there is a focus on education services, because it's the delivery of education services that the Eston are most interested in, it does look at the overall leadership of the local authority, and how the overall leadership structure discharges its functions in order to ensure improved outcomes for all learners. So area 3 is quite a vast area and involves many teams from across the local authority, elected members, members of SLT, our leader, chief executive. So pulling all of that together at the moment in a coordinated manner seems quite a big feat, but we're getting there. All the information is present in the documents that we have as a local authority, but it's just a case of bringing it together so we can truly tell the story really of the journey that Conway has been on in terms of developing its educational offer. So quality and effectiveness of leader and managers is part of key area 3, self-evaluation and improvement planning, professional learning, safeguarding arrangements, and our use of resources. The safeguarding arrangements is a really clear, distinct line of inquiry. So during that aspect, we'll be able to showcase the work of the Corporate Safeguarding Board, the progress that we're making on our mandatory training completion rates, the governor training, and also the safeguarding processes which are well embedded in school, which we audit on an annual basis as part of our safeguarding audit toolkit programme. So that's the framework in its entirety, a focus on 3 of those areas. And Dawn, if you can just move on to the next slide. So these are the local questions that are specific to us here in Conway, and these fit into area 2 of the overall framework. So we wanted to, over the past year, we wanted to ensure that we were able to demonstrate areas of progress, areas that require further improvement, but also to celebrate some of the good work that has taken place across the local authority. And I feel that these areas do depict that well, and these are the areas that Estin have presented to us. So the first area in terms of standards is how well does the local authority support schools and settings to improve teaching and leadership. We'll be working closely with GWER to bring all that information together in order to respond to that local question. So the local question, we will be self-evaluating the progress that we've made insofar in that particular area. We will then be required to evidence that progress with documentation, be it scrutiny reports, links to scrutiny meetings, minutes of meetings, terms of reference, any task and finish groups that we've held. And then that will be triangulated further by a series of interviews, which will take place prior to the inspection week and during the inspection week. I'll talk a little bit about that process once I've been through these 4 areas. Secondary, ALN. We know that there's a tremendous amount of work gone on within the field of ALN, additional learning needs, over the past 10 years. You know, it's transformed from where it was back in 2016. So the question here is, how well does the local authority support learners with additional learning needs in mainstream schools? We've got a wealth of evidence and information to share. We've got future plans in terms of areas of improvement, and of course our response as well to the legislative changes in terms of the ALN code that we are responding to and on track to do so. Then thirdly, we wanted to capture as well the transformation across social care and education and how that has led to a more holistic, cohesive response to families within their communities. So really education within its wider sense, with education within its wider sense in terms of the community aspect. So how effective is the local authority in supporting families to help children and young people engage in education? So we will be drawing in our youth services, the community engagement team, the work of family centres, the work of our central teams in monitoring attendance, the work we're doing with schools in terms of social inclusion. So we really do want to showcase the work that's taking place across social care and education in that particular line of inquiry. And then finally, how effective is the local authority in supporting schools with the Welsh language? We've got our aspirational WESP, which of course it has been fully endorsed by Cabinet, and we've got really exciting examples of how we are moving schools along the language continuum, cluster by cluster, you know, really gaining momentum now with our vision for Welsh medium education across the local authority. So within all these areas, documented evidence will be required to support the information that we're providing as part of our self-evaluation. Estyn also have released a citizen and stakeholder questionnaire that was released Monday, yesterday. So that's gone out through our usual channels of communication, and we've strongly encouraged everybody to respond to that questionnaire so that we can get a really good cross-section and a good level of feedback, really, in terms of you know, individual stakeholder and citizen perception of how education is delivered here in Conway. The questionnaires have been sent to elected members. There's a specific questionnaire for head teachers, governors, parents, young people, the diocese, unions. So we've really pushed that out. So Estyn will be using information from the stakeholder and citizen questionnaire, information from our self-evaluation document, and they'll be triangulating that as well by using information from the interviews with the groups, which will begin on the 11th of October. So Dawn, could you just go to the next slide, please? So this is the timetable. I think I have mentioned a few of these already. So we were notified on the bank holiday weekend during the summer break, which head teacher and citizen questionnaire survey is fully open now, and that's open for a time frame of 3 weeks. We are required to get all the key documentation up into the virtual inspection room. So that's the form by which we upload all this information, and our deadline for that is the 2nd of October. However, we have an internal deadline of Friday for that to make sure that we're quality assuring that information and that it accurately supports the narrative that's in our self-evaluation. The citizen survey closes on the 9th of October. And then on the 11th and 12th of October, Estyn will be visiting us for a preliminary visit. So they'll be coming to Coed Pesha, and they will be meeting with groups of stakeholders. So I know that there are some of you present today that we will be asking you to support us in those interviews, but we'll be doing that now over the next few weeks. So those are 2 dates to be aware of. We'll be inviting our secondary head teachers, our cluster representatives from all our primary schools, our special school head, our Pru head teacher, and also we will be asking the Youth Council to join that preliminary visit. So we just want to make sure that we're providing an opportunity for key groups that we work with to provide feedback to the team on various aspects. Those interviews will be based on the local questions. So there'll be a clear focus on ALN, Welsh, school improvement, and also family engagement. The actual inspection itself will take place on the 6th of November. So Estyn will arrive on the 6th of November. We'll be presenting to them as a local authority our vision and our aspiration for the next few years for education in Conway. And then that's when the more detailed interviews will take place. So they'll be with officers, groups of stakeholders. We'll be calling in heads. We'll be calling in multi-agencies from, say, for example, police, CAMS, health, just to make sure that we are providing a range of professionals and service users to be part of those engagement sessions. At the end of that week, on the Friday, they will be feeding back. There won't be a judgment, but they will inform us of a more intense focus in terms of a category, or they will provide us with an overview of the strengths that they've noted. So the actual week is between the 6th and the 10th. We've got quite a bit of work now in terms of just coordinating that paperwork and getting it into the virtual inspection room. So yeah, at the moment we're under quite a bit of pressure to meet these deadlines. That some of the deadlines have been brought forward in terms of the preliminary visit, which has meant that we've got we've got a shorter time to coordinate the interviews. But yeah, all in all, we're on track, and we really value your support and your patience with us as a central team at the moment, while we make sure that we are, you know, selling ourselves in terms of the way in which we deliver education services. So I don't know, Hannah, whether there is, Councillor Hannah, any questions or observations from anybody before we move on to the next item.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lovey. That's very comprehensive, and it's amazing how much work you have to actually provide them with before they even turn up. But I'm quite confident that you've got a lot of evidence to go in there, which I suppose is not making it easy and actually compiling it all and putting it forward to them. As governors, as most of us have already said today that we're governors, presumably it's really important for us to be responding to that questionnaire as governors and as councillors, and as we may well have relatives in schools.
Absolutely, Councillor Hannah, we strongly encourage all governors to respond to that questionnaire, and we will be putting together a stakeholder interview group with governor representatives. Of course, we've got our Conway Governors Association. We've got our representative on the School Budget Forum from the Governor Association. So we will be in contact with you over the next few weeks as to inviting you in.
Thank you. And presumably as governors, we need to make sure our safeguarding training's up to date, because is that likely to be one of the measures that they're going to look at?
Absolutely. And I have sent some communication earlier this week around that. It's key and it's essential that those completion rates improve. And, you know, not only to demonstrate that we're proficient in terms of our knowledge of safeguarding processes, but also to keep ourselves safe as governors, as part of the workforce. You know, it's about reducing the risk to everybody. So I can't stress that enough. Please ensure that you and your colleagues do complete that as governors.
Do you have a deadline when you want to make sure? I think some of us respond
Last
well
Friday,
to deadlines.
I think it was last Friday, Councillor Hannah.
Friday.
So, yes. So
we'll try and do our best.
If you could do it by this Friday, it'll be a gold star.
Okay, so gold star for anyone that can get their safeguarding completed by Friday if they're not completely up to date with that. Thank you. Do we have any questions from committee members first of all? Okay, I've got a question in the room. Councillor Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak, as I am not a member of this committee. I have two questions. First of all is relation to the training on safeguarding. And I appreciate that Conway County Council has provided some training in regards to the use of Hub and e-learning. But as one of my colleagues would point out, it's an absolute nightmare to get on and is a deterrence to anybody trying to do the training in the first place. Do you envisage any further trainings in regards to Hub or refreshers in regards to Hub and e-learning? And my second question relates to family engagement. I'm aware of a family within my own ward who have a child who's got to the age of 8 years old, is not able to read or write, appears to have been completely neglected by Conway County Council schools. So I'm now working with Jeremy Miles' office in trying to resolve the issue. Can I ask, how do you envisage taking that report forward when potentially we have the likes of children being sidelined?
Thank you for those two questions. Well, one question and one request. I am aware that there has been hub training available for elected members. I don't know whether Dawn can actually confirm that. I know that we've got a central member of the team who has provided guidance on accessing it. So I don't know, maybe Dawn, that's something that we pick up outside of this, just to make sure that those elected members who are still having difficulty in accessing it can receive some report or some support or input.
Yes, of course, Lowry, yes.
Okay.
There was training provided for members. I think it was after a council meeting, if I'm right. So, but yeah, we can pick that up. I'll pick that up with Sean.
Yeah. I'm sorry, and of course, I know that we can't go into details or specifics of individual cases here today, and I don't plan to do that. So I think it's going to be really difficult for me to answer that question in terms of how we plan to take that report forward. However, if you feel that any support that we can provide in terms of this particular case or individual, I'd encourage you to email us directly in the first instance. You know, if a parent or a family does feel that let down, I think it's important that we're aware of it and that we can continue to work with them to make sure that you know, there are improvements in that offer. So I'd like, you know, have direct contact. Happy for you to email me on that if there is additional support required.
Thank you. Councillor Gwennell and then Councillor Paul.
Mi o'n hyfforddiant yn benodol ar gyfer y llywodraethwyr sydd â chyfrifoldeb am ddiogelu dydd Gwener dwytha. Ac os oedd ne lywodraethwr sydd yn gyfrifol am ddiogelu wedi methu bod ar yr hyfforddiant yna, mae'r sleidiau a'r cyflwyniad wedi cael ei recordio ac ar gael ar gyfer llywodraethwyr. Oedd o'n ddiddorol iawn. Dim i gyd yn berthnasol i lywodraethwyr, ond mae unrhyw wybodaeth sy gennym ni i gefnogi'n ysgolion yn berthnasol. Felly, a chymod, mater o logio arnodd i hob ydi o, unwaith ydych chi arnodd, mae'r hyfforddiant wedyn yn hawdd, a ydych chi'n gallu ail wneud cwestiynau chod ys ddim llwyddo a methu yn y prawf. Felly, chymod, mater o eistedd lawr a gweithio'ch drwyddo fo ydi o, a mae'n werthfawr iawn. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Thank you, Gwennell. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, if I could just give an update on the hub training issue, because I had to attend St Elvod's primary school yesterday because they've got a Estin inspection next Monday starting 25th. So we were invited in as governors to first of all check what level of training we were up to, and then if there was any outstanding to pursue it. But on the hub, there are two issues, aren't there? There was, if you like, the old hub seemed to work. Then we had to authenticate, so you have to put it on an app on your phone and to be able to access it. And that's, I think that process is still causing problems for some governors, definitely causing problems for some governors. But even though I'm authenticated and I could get in, yesterday I did one training model, which was very straightforward to do with, I think it was data or something. Anyway, it was very straightforward and that was fine. But when there was one other piece of governor training, not safeguarding training, I just took the opportunity to try and make sure I was up to date with everything. And again, even with the business manager, with the governors trying to sort those things out, the thing was so clunky and we just couldn't, the two governors I was with, we just couldn't get in onto the system. So it does appear that in your evidence, when you talk to Estin, either on school inspections or on local authority inspections, there are still significant problems, even with, you know, professional supervision, if you like, to access and complete the training modules. And that's as up to date as yesterday afternoon.
Thank you, Paul. Dr. Lowry,
yeah, fine. Thank you, Councillor Paul. That's good feedback. We do know the system's clunky and we do appreciate your patience in completing it. I think it, you know, the system is the system. It's what we use at the moment. So I think just to make sure that you are able to access it, and I will report these comments to our Governor Support Officer, Einir, who can send further instructions out if required. But thank you for the feedback.
Thank you. When we started our training as councillors, wasn't one of the sessions then safeguarding? So does that help that we will have attended Oh, someone's shaking their heads. I've got yeses and nos in the room. Is there anyone that knows for sure whether or not one of the sessions was safeguarding that we did as new councillors?
You would have definitely done safeguarding on for the original new Did You Remember induction.
Okay, I just wondered whether that would help in your figures, Dr. Lowry, if you had a record of which of us had done that, even if we haven't managed to do it as governors.
Yes, we do have those records. It's just that we do encourage you to do it as part of your governor role as well, Councillor Hannah. So if you can do that, that would be most welcome.
Okay. Okay, so everyone, if you've not done it, top of your to-do list, please, before Friday. Any other questions? Okay, so we wish you well. We hope it goes well. We're sure, I'm confident it will do. It's a case of getting them to see the evidence, and that's why you're doing all this hard work beforehand, because we do know, certainly with the close working with social care, there's so much crossover in what you're doing and so many positive things that I'm coming across in other meetings. I've every confidence. It's just that stress of hoping that Eston see what you're wanting to show and what you can show off and what we have got there that we've achieved, and also to have that outside inspection to be able to say, yeah, this bit's really good and this bit maybe is something have you thought of or where you could work on. I think it's a really valuable experience, but nevertheless an extremely stressful one. So I feel for all of you, and Christmas will not come soon enough, I suspect. Thank you very much. So could we have a proposer to note the explanation that we've so kindly been given? I've got Councillor Gwenold there. Could I have a seconder, please? I'm looking for someone online that I've not had yet. Councillor Colette, I'm going to take, because I don't think I've ever had Colette second anything, so thank you. And could we do a hands up, please, to accept that what's going on there? Thank you. So moving on, we've got item 8A, which is the consultation report on the proposed amalgamation of Ysgol Babanod Mochtra and Ysgol Castanen. Councillor Julie Fallon is here and she's going to introduce the item, and we have John Davis and Dr. Lowry Brown who will present the report. Thank you, Councillor Julie.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just find my page. And I'm a bit croaky as well, so I apologise in advance. Yeah, suddenly everybody starts moving. I think this is from, yeah, no, I think it's just, anyway. Okay, so as you've said, this is a consultation report on the proposed amalgamation of Ysgol Babanod Mochtra and Ysgol Castanen. At the meeting on the 13th of June 2023, we as a cabinet granted approval to proceed to consultation on the proposal to amalgamate Ysgol Babanod Mochtra and Ysgol Castanen. The period of consultation has completed, and the purpose of this today is to consider the results of the consultation. And I'm going to hand over to John, I think, who will go through the report with you today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch, Councillor Julie. Pnawn da pawb. Good afternoon, everyone. One of two reports I'll be presenting today, and the first one being Mochtra. The report is to share the results of the consultation on the proposed amalgamation of Ysgol Babanod Mochtra and Ysgol Castanen, which then in kind will seek cabinet approval to proceed to the next stage of the process, which is to issue a statutory notice. The purpose of the report is to share the results of the consultation on the proposed amalgamation of Babanod Mochtra and Castanen, and to seek cabinet approval to proceed to the next stage. And at the meeting on the 13th of June, as Councillor Julie mentioned, Conwy County Borough Council's cabinet granted approval to proceed to consultation on the proposal to amalgamate Mochtra and Castanen. The period of consultation ran from the 19th of June 2023 to the 7th of August 2023. The recommendation is that members approve the issuing of a statutory notice to formally amalgamate Babanod Mochtra and Ysgol Castanen as one school, following a review and approval of the revised transitional funding methodology. So why a review of transitional funding following such a positive consultation? Well, as part of the consultation process, a financial review of bringing together the schools was carried out, and this saw a reduction in allocation of around £80,000. It was agreed by Cabinet in August 2013 that any new school where an infant and junior school amalgamating and remaining on split sites or buildings, the new school would in the first year receive additional funding of 50% of the difference between the funding of the new school and the original two schools, and in the second year receive additional funding of 25% of the difference between the funding of the new school and the original two schools. In subsequent years, there would be no additional funding and the new school would be funded as one school. Without the provision of transitional funding, the secure transition and future stability of the new school could be compromised through insufficient resources at setup. The current transitional funding was agreed as part of the school modernisation programme, the original Tranche 13 and school modernisation that Conwy were part of, where schools amalgamated and a new school building was also part of the proposal. In this current Mochtra amalgamation proposal, there is no capital building works proposed currently. The reduction in allocation following discussions with head teacher and the chair of governors last week would put the amalgamation at risk of failing, before it has even commenced, given the financial constraints the school would see itself at, even with the transitional funding scheme. We want this amalgamation to work. We want the work with the schools to ensure that this amalgamation is a success. Given this, we're asking to continue with the current timeline, but ask that a revised transitional funding formula is presented to scrutiny in Cabinet with a statutory proposal in January for approval. You're happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from committee members? Okay, Councillor Joe.
Diolch. What do you envisage the extra funding would be needed for in those first and second years, please?
I probably wouldn't be able to answer it directly, given that it would be it's the school's responsibility to manage their budget. However, it was obviously be a reduction in budget of what they currently have as two schools on two separate sites. So the school, in effect, would have to reduce. They'll have a reduced allocation of £80,000. So they'd be £80,000 that they'd have to look at ways of reducing their allocation.
Is that clear for you, Councillor Joe?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? I have a question from Councillor Stephen.
Thank you, Chair, again, for allowing me to speak, as I'm not a member of this committee. Can I first ask John, in relation to the agenda that we've been given today, is he referring to option 3 when you made the comment that members approved the issuing of statutory notice to formally amalgamate Ysgol Bodonedd and Ysgol Systemen as one school, following a review of the revised transitional funding methodology?
Correct.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
The concerns I've got, because it doesn't seem to be completely transparent here. The proposed transition funding, as pointed out at paragraph 6.3, year 1, it would be 37,824, and then again reduced by 25% to 18,912 on the second year, with no funding in the third year. Is that the proposed or recommended outcome that you seek today in relation to option 3?
I'm asking whether or not we could review that transitional funding model and come up with a model that works for us as a local authority to progress with this amalgamation, and also that will help the school financially plan the next few years with regards to the amalgamation, because like I mentioned, we want this to work. We want it to be a template to progress with future projects. Hence, yeah, that we're asking to have some time to go back, review the model that was based 10 years ago now, and could we just revisit that and bring it back with the statutory notice proposal in January?
Okay. And that would be purely based on paragraph 11.3 of because the current transitional funding process was modelled on an amalgamation of schools moving to a new facility, which is a different scenario to schools remaining on a separate sites due to the changes in capital funding. Is that correct?
Can I come in on that point, Chair?
Councillor Julie.
Yeah, so that's why we're wanting to look at this again, really, because it is quite unique in so much as when we've had amalgamations in the past, they have been on one site. So I think that's what we want to look at, Stephen, is to have the opportunity to see if there's something that needs to change, perhaps in the funding formula, to recognise if that is the case with amalgamation, because obviously the costs are different to when you have one site. You're obviously running two sites, so I think that's why we just need to ensure that that it's fair, and that will be within consultation as well with everybody, with all stakeholders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Julie. And I'll just refer to the strategy for modernisation of Conway primary schools, which was a link that you included on the agenda today. I mean, this report goes back to October 2010, and even then it said that we will work to ensure that all children have access to suitable facilities that allow the delivery of a range of education experiences. These are teaching and learning facilities, play facilities, staff and administration areas, conditions, style, security of buildings, and ICT. And I think from the last Estin report, which is highlighted in this report, which goes back to 2005, the current state of Mochtra schools, and these aren't my words, this is the report done by Conway County Council. Areas that could be improved include Sistan and General Site, access, outdoor play area, security, traffic issues, IT upgrade, for instance. And you've also engaged you appear to have engaged with the community there, and their preference would be for a new build for Mochtra. Being a governor of Mochtra and done some health and safety tours recently, and I'm sure you may be aware that parts of that school are actually condemned. And I'm just wondering, how would you be able to sustain Mochtra being in one school, given the condition that it's currently in? Or how would you expect both schools to sustain themselves, given the potential budgetary cuts that you're potentially going to impose on the school?
Come back in, Chair. So in an ideal world, there'd be money to build new schools on every site that we have, and we're just not in that situation, are we? In terms of looking at the two sites, yes, obviously we have a maintenance programme that is completed every year. That's the scoring opportunities through that. So I would suggest anything in particular that you want to highlight around those schools, then that can obviously be reviewed in terms of that programme. But these are all things that we need to look at in terms of, as I said, the financial costs. I think it will be important for us to have the opportunity to see how much the running costs are across both those schools, and to see what the appetite is for schools to decide whether one site is a preferred option or not a preferred option. You know, these are all things that we're looking at in every school we have across the local authority. So everything's on the table, Stephen, to discuss and look at, and all of that will be in consultation with governing body, with education, and as I said, with the maintenance programme that we have ongoing. But this is about, you know, I can remember years ago being approached and asked for the two sites to come together as a school, not necessarily the buildings, but as a school. They wanted one governing body, they wanted one the pupil to be on a journey from when they start, for it to feel as though they were part of the same school right the way through. So I think this is a positive thing. It's just about getting it right, and I think that's what we're looking at today. We appreciate that perhaps there are a few things, as we've said, that we need to look at again, and that's why it's going to be going to come back with alternatives.
I've got one final question.
Okay, Stephen.
One of the biggest budgetary issues within the school, we have a long-term, and I mean long-term, person who's been on sick for some considerable time, which has a budgetary impact on the school. I appreciate it's not the school's responsibility to hire and fire, but it potentially is the education department. And I'm just wondering why this situation where a teacher has been potentially off for quite a considerable period has been allowed to carry on.
Councillor Stephen, I'm not sure we can answer that, but I would
That's fine.
encourage you
I
to
just
take
wanted
that
to
up
make
with
it
the
aware.
department. I think
Okay.
that's really quite
Thank you.
important, but we're in danger of identifying an individual, and I wouldn't want us to be in that situation. Though it is obviously a financial implication, and I think it's something that we do need to know about, but not here maybe. Thank you. I've got Councillor Anthony, who's had his hand up for a while, so.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I'm going to say something really positive, and I think that it must have been there's not a stone been unturned here, and financial implications are going to be there all the time. Amalgamating the schools is a good thing, in my opinion, and I think in long term it's going to benefit everybody in terms of finance also. I mean, you've only got to look at the people who matter in this situation are the children, and if you look at pupils' responses there on page 65 and just read some of them, they're quite comical, they're innocent, it's brilliant to read. And it just tells you what the children think of it, more importantly than anything. So I think those things to be considered as much as anything we're talking about financially and further implications. I mean, you can throw spanners in the work at this all the time, but initially I think the idea is good and I think it will work great. You just read those comments the children have gone through. As an ex-RAF pupil, I've been in many schools traveling around Europe during my teenage years and in my primary school years, and I know what it's like to go into new schools. It's very exciting, it's very positive, it makes you confident, it gets you on, it draws you into crowds, it makes you stand up on your feet. So I think this is a good thing. Just read those children's comments, because those are the most important people that matter in this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Anne.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of points from me. One is just a question on the report that you're now going to be bringing forward in January, John. And can we just, within that report, just provide some detail, if not assurance, that as a result of the amalgamation, that we won't be lessening the teaching support to these two different schools that are amalgamating, nor indeed the TA support, because patiently the classes are going to presumably be staying within the single sites. So I'm just concerned that, you know, we actually don't unintentionally undermine what's being delivered currently. So that's one question. And then the second one is on page 61, from the positive comments from the consultation, playgroup, all-day playgroup sort of facility seems to be, you know, reigning supreme as a key success factor for the future sort of numbers at this school. And I don't know if that's in scope anywhere in terms of your future work, because potentially the downward spiral in terms of pupil numbers across these two units may well still become you know, an ongoing issue. So I just wonder if we're doing anything about playgroup provision. And I know it's an issue, not just in these two sites, but, you know, across other primaries as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. John, can you come back on the playgroup provision in particular?
Yeah, I'll just start with your first question with regards to the staffing implications. That will be obviously a decision for the school and the governing body. We will be working with them closely with regards to any sort of new transitional funding methodology, but that the overall decision with regards to how many staff they will need, how many TAs, etc., will obviously be the leadership team and inevitably the school's governing body's decision. With regards to the playgroup, we have a application in currently with Welsh Government through the 30-hour childcare grant, and that is a provision to look at a facility in the Mochtra area for a playgroup provision.
Can I just come back on that, Chair? I mean, thanks for the Thanks for the information about playgroup, John. I don't really feel the assurance coming or the detail coming in terms of the January report. I mean, if we're intending, our starting point intending is to take 80 grand out of these two schools combined, inevitably there's going to be implication on staffing levels, and staffing is their major cost. So just a request from me within this overall report is that when you come back to us in January, that we actually have those plans in place so that we actually understand what reductions, if any, that there are, because I don't think we should be reducing staff headcount here. There could be economies of scale in terms of other budget heads, but obviously those don't necessarily accumulate to something like 80 grand potentially. So I am concerned about staffing levels going forward in the school if it amalgamates.
John?
Just quickly coming on that then, you know, for example, you're mentioning, you know, the 80,000 there. The 80,000, one option could be to look at reducing that over, say, a period of 5 years rather than the current 3 years. So you would have inevitably about £16,000 per year reduction over the period of 5 years rather than the drop of 1525, so the 14, the 20. So there are options available to us that yes, inevitably bringing together two schools will have an impact. However, it will lessen the impact, and that's why we want to see what's feasible and how the school works with us with regards to ensuring that this financial model works for everyone.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Simon?
Yeah, just a question about the maintenance budget. Can we have an indication in Jan when this report comes back about the outstanding maintenance required on both schools? I'm a bit concerned that as well as amalgamating the budget, we're going to slim it down to one school's worth of maintenance share. And it sounds like they really do need a helping hand to get the place up to a good standard before they start out with their new school.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can provide some information on the maintenance that's required on both sites. There is obviously a responsibility there on the local authority and also on the school itself with regards to maintenance. They're allocated an amount in their school budget, and we as an authority also have a responsibility through the various SLA requirements. So that's fine, and we can make sure that everyone's aware of those.
Thank you. I have a question. The children's responses were very much excited about all being together. Will there be scope to allow that in some way? I realise that it's going to be a split site, but is there going to be more of a presence of one year group on another site at all?
I think bringing together the two schools, there'll be aspects where they will be together, you know, the one sports day, school services perhaps, collaboratively working, making sure that transitional space from junior and infants, it's easier, and that's obviously a school leadership matter, but inevitably I think that there'll be far closer relationships by the time that they do amalgamate.
Thank you. And I noticed they'll be getting a new school uniform. They're quite excited about that as well. And obviously we'll be allowing a transition so that parents don't suddenly have to fork out for a new uniform immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. That will be the decision of the new governing body if the school do amalgamate. And that's something that I'm sure that they will involve the pupils and the learners throughout this process.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions in the room? Councillor Paul.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. We're fully supportive of the amalgamation. Look forward to further school amalgamations coming before the council over the next couple of years. The issue for me in our present financial distress is this financial transition arrangement. I fully understand the reason why you're putting it back to January is that the present transitional arrangement for amalgamating schools are the same, are schools on the same site. These schools are on different sites, and we didn't have a sort of custom made arrangement for that situation. So that is what it is. But obviously in January, apart from the information that's been requested there, that really needs to be a full business plan for that, because our judgment on this transitional plan needs to be taken into account in the whole budget setting exercise. Now, I would argue, yes, we do need to be protective to these schools to get it off on a good footing. But I'm also conscious that in that budget setting exercise, it's, I won't say inevitable, but it's highly likely there will be further cuts to school budgets. So in that scenario, that needs also to be taken into account, I would argue, in the business case for this transitional arrangement, funding arrangement, because we may feel we have a robust transitional arrangement for these, where we're amalgamating schools on two different sites. But then if we take significant monies out of school budgets again, then in a sense it will be undermined. So I think that needs to be taken into account. And we also need to take into account, because I don't think in the paperwork that it was there, the actual surplus that both schools had at March 31st, 2023, because if they have reserves and surplus, that should also be in the business case when it comes forward to us in January. Do you see the point? Do you accept the points I'm making?
Yes, I accept your point, Councillor Paul. We can provide with a school balance from the final accounts. It's in the public domain. There is no issue with that. I understand, and I suppose we are in the same position where we're trying to balance things. What's fair with us to the schools, and what can we bring as well as a local authority through these amalgamations? Hence why we're asking for the time and, you know, not rushing through anything, that we can go through the school budget forum to review the transitional funding, for various models to be reviewed in more detail, take our time over it to make sure that we have a model in place that that works for the majority, shall we say, rather than everyone. But what we would like is just a bit of time to review that, rather than making any rush decisions, because this model will inevitably be the model that we take forward then to be fair to all other then amalgamations that are in the current similar situation to Mochtra. We don't want individual models working for certain areas, certain schools, certain projects. Hence why we're just looking at it and just trying to make the right decision. Yeah.
Thank you. So it seems that we're the situation where what we decided in the past, we didn't foresee schools on different sites. And so I think it's fairly obvious that we do have to look at that. We can't expect the expenses to be exactly the same. But obviously we have a very constrained budget. I've got another question, Councillor Joe.
Thank you. Just thinking logistically, obviously there's on two sites, and in between there is a busy road with often lorries parked with deliveries and things. Just making sure that adequate provision is hung on to for getting those children across from one school to the other when these times happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, briefly, yes, without question. Health and safety is paramount, and is number one with anything that we do with regards to school sites and school provisions, and that's something that is high on the agenda with regards to discussions that we have with schools at any time. So yeah, no issue with that.
Deal.
And long term, would we be looking to eventually having them all on the same site? And this might be very long term, considering our budget restraints.
That's something I suppose we can discuss in the future. But the current obviously provision is to have them on two separate sites.
Yeah.
And discussions then are ongoing, as it is with all schools, with regards to future developments and how we can, yes, work more efficiently, but deliver the best education that we can from the school facilities that we have in Conwy. And I strongly believe that we do that as we currently stand.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Gwennol.
Just a cwestiwn i John. Mewn ysgolion cynradd ar wahân i'r gyllideb, mae gennych chi'r gronfa ysgol, lle mae gen yr arian mae fel arfer yr cyfeillion yr ysgol neu'r Gymdeithas Rhianeg Athrawon wedi gasglu. Dwi'm yn gwybod faint o gyllid sydd gan y ddwy ysgol yn i'w cronfa ysgol. Be fysa'n digwydd efo'r arian yna pan mae'r ysgol yn cyfuno? Ydy'r arian yna mynd i gael ei amsugno yn cyllideb y ddwy ysgol, neu ydy o'n mynd i gael ei gasglu at ei gilydd a'i roed i'r ysgol newydd?
Deisio fi ateb hynny? Sori. Cadeirydd, di'n iawn i fi, chi eisiau fi ateb hynny?
Diolch.
Just rhag ofn, o'n i'm yn gweld os oedd John yn rhoi feicar. Fasa'r cyllideb yna, Cynghorydd Gwennol, yn trosglwyddo i'r ysgol newydd. Felly fasa fo ddim yn cael ei amsugno gan y cyllideb, fasa fo dal fel petai yr school fund, ond ar gyfer yr ysgol newydd.
Diolch yn fawr, mae hynna'n dda i glywed. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr. I saw movement. Was that another hand going up? Or not in the room? Okay, I have Simon online and then Councillor Evil.
Yeah, just to note that looking at all the pupil comments, quite a number of them seem to think they are getting a combined school. Poor things. They might be a bit disappointed.
Thank you. Councillor Evil.
Diolch. Be sy'n codi'n bach o bryder ydy'r ochr cyllid, yr hefaliad yma, yr 50% yn y flwyddyn cyntaf, wedyn yr 25% yn yr ail flwyddyn. Mae y braidd yn fynegol yn y marn ni. Dwi'n gweld o'n rhy meidraidd. Mae bach o waith ar hynny, dwi'n meddwl. Os rhyw ffordd o dreulio lawr ar hyn, John, neu dim pob het sy'n ffitio bob pen yn y marn ni.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ein bwriad ni fydd adolygu hyn, i edrych arno fo fel bod na dyraniad teg i'r ysgolion, a fydd rhywbeth yn gweithio i ni hefyd yn ganolog. Dwi'n deall mae o'n anodd cael rhywbeth sydd yn gweithio i bawb, ond dwi'n meddwl i fod yn deg, dyma'r ffordd o'r ymlaen bod ni yn cael rhywbeth i weithio sydd yn gweithio fel un. Felly dyna'r bwriad, fel bod ni'n dod â rhywbeth yn ôl i chi ym mis Ionawr.
Diolch, John.
Diolch, John.
Okay, I can't see any more hands up. So we have a recommendation, and the recommendation is option 3. Just checking I've got that right, yes. So that the Cabinet would approve the issuing of a statutory notice to formally amalgamate Ysgol Babanad, Mochtra and Ysgol Cystennin as one school, following a review and approval of the revised transitional funding methodology. Do I have a proposer for that recommendation? So this would be to formally amalgamate the two schools, or to ask Cabinet to approve it, but with the proviso that we would look at that transitional arrangement because it wasn't seen as having been set up in the first place for a split site. And so that's why it's felt that it needs to be re-examined. So do I have a proposer? I've got Jo was first. So, oh, she's got, I say, sorry, Councillor Jo, I'm sorry, it's because you have real hands up and it doesn't move you to the top. And there's a lot of you on the screen. So I've got Councillor Jo, I believe was first. So are you proposing? Yes, thank you very much. And I'm going to go to Councillor Kay in the room because I saw your hand as well. So Councillor Kate, sorry, Councillor Anne, you were third in there.
It's okay,
did
can I
you
just
want to ask something?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, does the proposal actually include that this will come back to scrutiny in January in terms of a proposed transitional funding methodology? I want to be clear, that's what I'm voting for.
That is our understanding, yes. Thank you, Anne, for clarifying that. So we're obviously not giving anyone a blank checkbook here. We're saying we are expecting this funding proposition to come back to us. Okay, so I had a proposer and a seconder. Are you still happy to propose and second with that clarification? Yes, thank you, Joe and Kate. So could I take that to the vote, please? Those in favour, please. Please keep your hands up because we're having to count you. Okay, is there anyone against? And were there any abstentions? No, it was unanimous. Thank you very much. So the next item is exempt. I need a proposer who is happy to allow us to go into a private consultation on this. I have Councillor Kay. I have a seconder, Councillor Grenell. Can I have a show of hands, please, to show that you're happy that we make this an exempt item? Okay, that's, I think, unanimous. Thank you.